Here's a 2004 Highlander. You're going to understand why people buy these things. The guy bought it years ago for $4,900. He's put almost 100,000 miles on it. Now, in all those years, he had to do some work, but it really isn't the vehicle's fault. The fault is he lives in Massachusetts. So, control arms would rust off, brakes, suspension parts, because of all the stinking salt they use on the road in the winter. It's going to eat them up. Now, interestingly enough, the body doesn't rot away because it was all done correctly by Toyota. When they made these things, even this older one, they put them in zinc-based primer, electrostatically charged. The bodies, they don't rot away. They're fine. It's all the ancillary stuff like control arms that are made out of steel, brake rotors that are made out of steel. Everything that's made out of steel, of course, is going to rust. That's the one advantage of a real top-end car like an Audi. Their control arms and stuff are made out of fancy aluminum. Aluminum doesn't rust, so they will last longer in a corrosive environment. You're going to find that all the steel parts will eventually rust. So, whoop-de-doo. The last 3 years, he said he probably spent a couple of grand having stuff done. You think about what he paid, you know, 4 grand. You got over 100,000 miles. We're going to check it out, make sure it's still going. I'm sure it is, but the computer will tell us the truth about that. Now, as we look under the hood, you see all the bugs. They got a lot of bugs here, too, and they eat up your paint. V6 engine, Toyota's electronic variable valve timing, which works great. But it's a 3.3 liter engine with a rubber timing belt. I did recently have a timing belt and the water pump changed, which is a good idea because, lo and behold, this is one of the few engines Toyota ever made that's an interference engine. The 3 liters weren't, the 3.5 liters weren't, but the 3.3 liters were. Who knows what they were thinking about? They don't make them like this anymore. The only company that I have a beef with is Honda today, because Honda's still making V6 engines with timing belts that are interference engines. Everyone else has timing chains, but no. They got some weird idea. I guess they don't want to spend the money swapping their productions over, but these are very good engines. Change the timing belt every 100,000 miles or so, and you're not going to have any problems. But I do have to tell you the truth. Okay, I've been working on cars for 55 years, and I started working on Toyotas in the early 1970s. You know how many broken timing belts I've seen on these V6 engines? None! And I've seen people with 350,000 miles with still the original timing belt. They're made that well, but if you're not a riverboat gambler, you might as well change the belt and the water pump every once in a while, just to make sure bad things don't happen to you. But they are that well made. Okay, it's a Toyota, it's running smooth. I can hear the fan belt making a little bit of noise. Who cares? It's been raining, it's wet, right? Original AC compressor, it still works. The alternator is original. Most of the parts are still original, you know? And since it's made in Japan, you know the quality is good. Now the seats are starting to fray from age. This is a work vehicle. You can see lots of stains from work-related things. But when you pop the seats back, hey, there's all kinds of room for storing stuff. Now it's got 214,000 miles on it. It's all-wheel drive. Does the system work? Of course it still works. It's a Toyota. They make good all-wheel drive systems. Now, personally, I'm not a fan because I don't like the extra expense and the worse gas mileage, but he lives in Massachusetts. A lot of people like it for getting around in the snow. Now, he uses all-season tires, and he said with the all-season tires and the all-wheel drive, it's fine. He doesn't bother putting snow tires on. You get a lot more grip with all-season tires, all-wheel drive, than you will just all-season tires. That's just common sense. Most people, if they have just two-wheel drive, they'll put snow tires on the drive wheels, right? But in this case, he just keeps the all-season tires on. You don't have any problem driving around Massachusetts in the winter. So we get out the brand new Autel scan tool. It's all plugged in. We'll diagnose it. It's loading itself. Read the VIN. We'll do a fault scan. Go through the whole system. It's an old car, so it's going to take a little while. So we'll look around. The steering wheel's still in good shape. Windows, everything works. Heat, AC works. Look, it's still got the original Toyota with a CD player and a tape deck. And they still work. It's a sunroof, but it's raining. Now, as you can see, lots of lights are on, so we're probably going to get a bunch of codes, even though it's still running pretty good. And you can see there's quite a few codes, so let's start up here. Now, while we're waiting for the scan, it's slow because it's an old vehicle. It's a 2004. These armrests always wear out. That's typical. You can see it's a work vehicle. It's been to Hades and back, but it's still going. And since all these lights are on, I expect some codes. So far, there's 14 codes. You can see he's got the old radio, but he's also put in a Sirius XM so he can listen to music he wants to listen to and not be limited to old tapes or CDs or even older an AM FM radio. Be patient with these old vehicles. It's been a few minutes and now it's 63% done. These old cars had much slower computers, so interfacing with them does take more time. Now we're up to 72. We're getting there. Cadillac inefficiency, bank 1, bank 2, bank 1, bank 2. So the catalytic converter is not working all that well. The ABS system, the right front speed sensor circuit, the left front speed sensor circuit, the right rear circuit, the left rear circuit, and the ABS control system. So the ABS system, it's messed up, as is the airbag system and the sliding roof communication stuff. Well, it's closed, so we don't care. So we'll check this CAT code out here. And the machine itself gives you a big explanation of the codes, tells you how the system all works, and tells you that the trouble areas are the catalytic converter and the front exhaust pipe, gas leakage, airflow sensor, oxygen sensors. There's lots of things it could be. So let's start it up. Look at the engine ECT data. Now, as I look at the live data, I can see the oxygen sensors are working. The vehicle's running in closed loop. It's not open loop, so those systems are working. Now, if the customer wanted me to, with that nice Autel machine, I can start doing tests that shows what part to test, how to test the wiring, how to test the cats. It's got a freeze frame oscilloscope. It's got a wave generator. So you can figure it out. And it has the information on it to figure it out. But in this case, the guy doesn't give a crap. You know why? Because it's running perfectly fine and it's older than 15 years. And in Massachusetts, when they're older than 15, they don't do emissions testing anymore. It runs perfectly fine, as I was telling him. I had a customer in Houston with the same exact vehicle, even the same color. How bizarre was written. And his check engine light kept coming on. And it was for inefficient catalytic converter. So for 4 years, he'd bring it to me, I'd reset it and get it so he could get it inspected, because at the time, it wasn't 25 years old, right? I'd reset it, get it to go good enough that he could pass it for the emissions. Well, after driving it 4 years the way it ran fine, and the light kept coming back on for him, he came the 5th year. And he said, you gotta set it so I can get my car inspected. I plugged in the machine, the code was gone. This is 5 years. He did no repairs to the car. He just switched from one Exxon station to they opened a Shell station closer to his house, and he was lazy as could be, so he went to the closest gas station, and that better gas burnt more efficiently because that code means the catalytic converter isn't working at 100%. Sometimes as little as 94% efficiency, it'll trip that code. But if you live where you got to get it inspected, yeah, on these things, they build the catalytic converters into the exhaust manifold. It's a V6, there's one on each side. Since they're both reading bad, you're talking about big money, and since it runs fine, does anybody really care? No. And as for the ABS, well, the sensors aren't working, and the modulator itself. Now, it could be the modulator and the sensors, or just the modulator, and then it trips the sensors because it's messed up and it thinks the sensors are wrong. But it doesn't really matter, because on these, the ABS system is called fail-safe. When the ABS stops working, you get to normal, non-ABS braking. If he slams the brakes on now real hard, he can lock the wheels up. So if he knows how to drive, he won't get into trouble. The modern cars, the real modern cars, they have it tied in with vehicle stability, all kinds of control stuff, and it creates a mess when they break down. But an older one like this, hey, you still feel like you're braking okay. It's just you don't have anti-lock brakes, so you got to understand. If you got to stop fast and it's wet outside, you'll have to pump the brake. So you see the ABS light, and a guy like me says, well, you want to spend thousands of dollars possibly for a new modulator and all this work? Or if you're happy with the way it goes, drive it without ABS brakes. Got this modulator assembly here and the labor to change it out. You probably do like him and just drive the thing around. I'll take it for a little ride. We got to look in this case. And we're looking. You can see around it, there's no blind spots. Now, it's a Highlander, so it is relatively high. You got it. So we can go over a little bump here, not have to worry about things dragging. And yeah, it's old, but hey, it still goes down the road. Sure, the tire pressure monitoring system doesn't work. The ABS system doesn't work. The vehicle speed control doesn't work. The airbag doesn't work, and the check engine light is on, but it still goes down the road. Conditioning still works. Well, we got clearance to the right, but no clearance to the left. All right, we have an opening. Here we go. We'll floor it. Now that V6 engine sounds great, still shifts like a dream, even with 214,000 miles on it. And truthfully, it is a blessing that it's over 15 years old, because now he doesn't have to do the emissions testing, so he doesn't have to fix all these stupid lights that are shining and flashing. Still rides pretty good, corners pretty good, makes a nice work truck. You can see he works the heck out of it. You're high enough up in the air that you can see where you're going, and being all-wheel drive, hey, doesn't get stuck in the snow, and he's only using all-season tires. Yeah, it's got 214, but I mean, I've seen these things with 514,000 miles on it. Yeah, they might shake, rattle a little, maybe a couple speeds of the fan on the blower for the AC don't work anymore, but hey, they're still going down the road and they're still blowing cold. So here we got an old 04, and yeah, the bugs have eaten the paint up. They're very acidic bugs here on the East Coast. I don't know where it is. And yeah, lights are flashing. It still runs perfectly fine. It just goes to prove that PL430 codes for inefficient catalytic converters, often they don't affect the running of the car one iota. If your catalytic converters were actually bad, what happens is they clog up, and then your temperature gauge will start running towards the hot, and when they get bad enough, you'll only be able to go a certain speed. Like it'll go 50 miles an hour and no faster, and when it's really clogged, it'll go like 10 miles an hour. But that's not the case with this. You can see it's still, the engine runs like a sewing machine. The transmission still shifts good. So these old things, hey, let's just say they don't make them like they used to. So why not stick to the old stuff as long as you can? All right, people like big SUVs. Here's a Honda Pilot. It's an 09. I'm going to tell you the absolute truth about them. What goes wrong with them, what's wrong with this one, what doesn't go wrong with them, whether you should buy one or not. Now, these are all put together in the United States. This particular one, he's wondering about the transmission. He's the original owner, getting a little herky-jerky. We're gonna road test it with my computer and check it out. But when it comes to buying these things, sad but true for this owner, the one year you don't want to buy is 2009, because that's the one that's notorious for having transmission problems. Now, if you're thinking about buying one today, and it's an older one like this, especially 2009, first take it for a road test before you do anything. Take it on the highway, take it in the city. If it starts lurching at gears, shuddering, bring it back and say, no thanks, I don't want to buy it, because it's going to need a transmission. A lot of the other ones have more minor problems that are obvious to see. The later model ones had paint that bubbled up. You can see this paint's still in perfectly good shape, and it's black. And if anything's going to fade, it's going to be black paint from the heat of the sun. You can see there's some rust because this is Massachusetts. You can see the bolts are really rusting, but that's not the car's fault. That's just cheap bolts. The vehicle itself, as we go under, it's still really solid. That's not a problem that these have. They're pretty solid built. I mean, look at it. There's a lot of aluminum, which of course, aluminum doesn't rust. You got a steel control arm. Believe me, it's gonna rust. I've even seen Lexus steel control arms rust off. This one's aluminum, better design, costs more to make, but in the long run, it's a better deal. And some of them, the brakes wear out and the rotors warp, but they don't cost that much money to replace brake pads and rotors. It's not that big of a deal. Now, this one came with leather seats. They're still in decent shape. And being a 2009, it's got a reasonable amount of stuff on it here. It didn't come with a backup camera, or I should say, it doesn't have the normal backup camera that you're gonna see in the dash. That came later. It's got one built into the rear view mirror. Now it's somewhat smaller, you can see. You get old like me, it's gonna be harder to see, but it's still there. It was a pretty luxurious vehicle in its day. It's got the old player here for DVDs for the kids. And being four-wheel drive, using the buttons, setting on what you want. One of the big reasons people buy these is because they are large SUVs. It's the largest one that Honda makes. There's a lot of space here. Put the seats down, there's even more space. And as we go in the trunk, big gigantic trunk. There's more seats if you want more seats. These things have a lot of room, and the people in the back not only have some space, they got a decent view. It's not like they're inside a cave like some of these are. So we'll go into the hood and see that it has a great engine. It's a Honda V6. It does have rubber timing belts, which he recently had changed. That's one thing he had to do. It's an interference engine. But it gets around 20 miles a gallon on a highway. And for something this big and this heavy, that's about as good as it's ever going to get if you have a gasoline engine. You'd have to go to a smaller engine and a hybrid setup. If you went to a four-cylinder engine and hybrid, my son's four-cylinder Sienna gets 37 miles a gallon. But it's got a four-cylinder, not a six, and it's also got the hybrid boost. So unless you're getting into high technology. This is about the best you're going to get, especially in this year. It still runs perfectly fine, the engine and everything, but he's worried about the transmission. We're going to take it for a road test in a few minutes, see exactly what's going on there. Now, of course, the transmission's a real big deal, but he still got the original AC compressor. He recently had the alternator changed, and he changed one of the ignition coils. Not that big of a deal for all these years. But realize one thing on this particular Honda. 14 years old, but check it out. It's only got 127,000 miles on it. So in my book, or most people, that's low mileage for all these years. Normally, that's nothing on a Honda, but the problem here is, this is the 1 year that they had problems with the automatic transmissions in these things. I mean, you can get a problem in any particular car, but it was more or less a design flaw of this particular model. So we're plugging the out scan tool on with the engine not running to get the interface set up. While we're waiting, you can see there's all kinds of space. This thing was well designed. Got a big old storage unit here. Even though it's an older car, it's got all kinds of power outlets on it. Realize that the Pilot shares a lot of stuff with the Acura MDX. A lot of stuff's very similar on them, so they're pretty luxurious vehicles. There's nothing slouchy about it. A complex car. We need a complex scanner to really get serious about it. We'll do all systems. You can see we're going to an awful lot of stuff here, which is a big reason. If you're going to buy a used car like this, you want a guy like me to check it out. There's too much things that could possibly go wrong. Going through 47 separate systems here. 7 out of 47, 8 out of 47. Now while we're waiting, realize originally these Pilots were made in Canada, but they've been made in Alabama for quite some time. But sadly, in the case of this 2009, it shared a lot of stuff with the Honda Odyssey van. And guess what? Those Honda Odyssey vans of the same year, they had automatic transmission problems. Same engine too, so it's no surprise that both of these in 2009 had automatic transmission problems. And if the owners don't change the oil enough, a lot of these will burn a little bit of oil as they age, especially the ones that have those variable engines that turn off cylinders sometimes, sometimes not. A lot of those are oil burners. If you do have one of those, my advice is to pay a guy like me to turn off the system that shuts the cylinders off every once in a while so that it only runs on 4 instead of 6 to get better gas mileage. That makes them burn oil too, so I wouldn't keep one of those systems active. If you bought one with that system, I would have it disconnected. And out of time's up. We got the codes. There's 4 of them, so let's check them out. We'll look at the BCM, circulation control motor. We really don't care about that. Now the other codes are ABS and tire pressure monitoring system. As with most older cars, the tire pressure monitoring systems aren't going to work anymore. The batteries go dead in the wheels. It costs a fortune to fix. Most people don't care. They'll get a tire pressure gauge. They won't spend a bunch of money fixing that crap. And the ABS, the anti-lock brake system. There's one code, which is ECM, PCM, relation failure. The computers aren't talking to each other right. So he's worried about the tranny. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to transmission data. Say any codes. There's no trouble codes. So we're going to look at the live data. And as you can see, we have 62 bits of live data, and we're going to record it and take it on a road test. We go on a road test. Nice big high vehicle. A few creaks here and there. You're going to get that on an older vehicle, especially one that lives in the rustland of Massachusetts. We'll see how the tranny shifts. I felt a little jiggle there. Let's see how passing gear works. Not bad. See how it shifts here. Not really too bad so far. I can feel a slight jiggle when it's going down. Nothing outrageous. I'm standing, starting it and see how it feels. Yes, there's a little jiggle there in the first to second and the second to third. Nothing outrageous. Let's go back and analyze the data. So here we go to the data playback and you can watch. There's a lot of frames, 4,143 frames. So I play them and I start analyzing the data. And I can see that first to second and second to third especially, there's a little lag in the command of the shift and the actual shifting of the gear. It's not tripping any code, so it's not bad yet, but it's worn somewhat. So it does have that little shifting jiggle, but a lot of them will do it as they age. Now, this is a notorious problematic transmission, just like the ones they had in the Honda Odyssey, which shares a lot of similar parts, right? But since he's only got 127,000 miles, I predict this thing will still go for quite some time. It'll just have selected little jittery shifting, up shifts or down shifts, because they're somewhere. Now, on the other hand, I would not buy one of these used if it had 200-something thousand miles on it. But since he's the original owner, and it's got that jiggle in it, but it's really not bad, and it hasn't tripped any codes, things aren't as bad as the owner might think. The codes only trip when they get to 20-something% plus or minus. It's nowhere near that. So, if he babies it, it still might go quite some time. The money to replace the transmission on one of these four-wheel drive jobs. In the past, I had customers in Houston get them fixed free when they were still under warranty. And it was a fortune if they had to pay out of their pocket. Some of it was $8,000, $10,000. That was back then, so you know it's going to be even more today. But this one is not bad yet. Now, let's say you were going to buy this vehicle with 127,000 miles on it. I wouldn't pay that much for it just because, you know, eventually the transmission's going to go out. But if you're going to baby it and not drive it that many miles, there's no saying. I mean, it took them 13, 14 years. You put that little bit of mileage on it, it might still last them quite some time. Of course, the good news for other people is if you get a really later model one, they don't particularly have transmission problems with them. They iron the problems out. Now, they're expensive vehicles, there's no doubting that, but they're big, they're Honda, they can last a long time. And the only real negative of all of them are, for some bizarre reason, even the new ones use rubber timing belts. But they're good engines. You just got to make sure you change that belt every 100,000 miles. You don't want to ruin an engine because a stupid little $50 belt decided it was going to snap. We're going to show this 2015 RAV4 all-wheel drive. And I'm going to tell you about all-wheel drive, four-wheel drive systems. A lot of people don't understand what they're getting into. In this case, this 2015 RAV4 is called all-wheel drive. The computer system will set up how much power goes to the front wheels versus how much power goes to the rear wheels. It can change it dramatically depending on driving conditions, right? This one is called all-wheel drive. Scores of different all-wheel drive, four-wheel drive systems. Some of them have 3 transfer cases. Some of them have 2, 3 differentials. There's all kinds of, and the electronic ones, each wheel could have its own motor. If you're going to buy a vehicle like that, let me tell you, do the research or ask me what you're getting into, because there's so many systems. It will make your head spin. But basically, what used to be true for everything is all-wheel drive are ones that you drive it, all the wheels are driving, they're either computer controlled. The early Audis were computer and hydraulically controlled, very complex stuff. Where the four-wheel drive systems are systems that you can have it in two-wheel drive, like take a classic Ford pickup. You'd have it just the rear wheels driving it. But then when you put it into four-wheel drive, then all four wheels. This vehicle here is all-wheel drive that the computer decides how much power to give to each wheel, and it's got traction control and everything. But as we go inside, you'll see. We'll put it in drive. See this little magic button here? There it is. We'll push that. And now look. Now the little light comes on. Okay? This is now a four-wheel drive vehicle. It's only four-wheel drive if you're driving less than 25 miles an hour. Once you go over that, the computer shuts it off and it goes into the normal system. So, let's say you're stuck in the mud, there's a ton of snow and you can only go 20 miles an hour. You push that button and you see the light is on and you're then in four-wheel drive. And then when you get going faster, turns it off. And I know a lot of people own these things and they have no idea about the system. So those of you who own them, now you know what that little button does. Stop the vehicle, push the button. You now have four-wheel drive up to 20, 25 miles an hour, so you can drive where there's a lot of snow or ice, or let's say you're going camping or hiking or fishing and you're on a dirt road full of mud and you're only going 15, 20 miles an hour tops. You'd push that button, and then when you're done, you turn it off. If it ever breaks down, you're going to be forking out money like no tomorrow. But on the other hand, I've never seen one of them break yet. So, as long as you don't drive it through 6 feet of water and flood the whole thing out, it is a really good system. And these older ones, they work great for what they are. You just realize you only use the four-wheel drive button when you're going under 25 miles an hour. And again, with this particular system, been out a while. This is a 2015. I've never seen one break. You know, the only things I ever see have problems are ones that got in wrecks or foolhardy people that decided, I'm going to lift this thing 5-6 inches. Then all the angles are wrong. Then you're going to wear the transfer cases and stuff. You don't want to do that. These things, for what they're made for, they're perfect. Don't raise them. Don't start doing all kinds of crazy stuff with them. Now, she just bought this a month ago, wants to see if it's in good shape or not. Now, it was made in Canada. The Canadians do a good job. And it had 100,000 miles when she bought it. She's put 3,000 miles on it. And you can see, even though it's a New York car, it's not rusted. Have any particular rust problems on it? The rims are still in good shape. She had to put rear brakes on because they were worn up, but that's normal maintenance. We've got Toyota's dual variable valve timing intelligence system and a very solid engine. It's a nice 2.5 liter engine. It doesn't have turbo and stuff like that that's going to wear it out faster. And they get decent gas mileage. Now, if you want really good gas mileage, you got to go newer than this. And I rented one where we went to Death Valley. I got 40-something miles a gallon driving that thing around. I was surprised. And it was just like this, plain 4-cylinder, non-turbo. It was only 2-wheel drive. It wasn't all-wheel drive. I rented cheap when I'm cheap. I mean, what do you need 4-wheel drive for in Death Valley? You know, everything, you can drive anywhere there. Everything's flat. They don't burn oil. You can see she's had the coolant changed, and they put the right coolant. They put the pink coolant in. That's usually good for about 175,000 miles or so. And when you look inside, you can see, hey, practically everything is the original part. These things last an awful long time. The alternator's original. And here's one for you. This is the original battery, and it's still working 8 years later, so hey. And as we look inside, truthfully, this is my favorite. Cloth seats. Look how well they've held up. Leather, you're going to get cracked, you're going to get hot and cold. These are more comfy. She's got her bike fit in here because they got a lot of room when you put those seats back. I'm sure the trunk itself is relatively small, but I mean, when you put these seats down, it becomes a large trunk, so you can use it for whatever you want. There we go, it's detected the vehicle. We'll do a standalone diagnosis. You can see it's read the VIN extremely quickly. Knows what it is, RAV4 North America, and it's got a dumb key. 2ARFE 4-cylinder engine without smart key, and I like that it doesn't have a smart key. I also like that it has a real parking brake, not that electronic crap that the new ones have. While it's doing a scan, nice sunroof, nice black and silver interior, still in excellent shape. The dash is good. It's not getting sticky like some of those Lexuses did because I didn't build them right. Got a reasonable amount of stuff on here.
I missed that.
Yeah, well, you should listen closer, machine. Yeah, we'll turn that off again. It's got one code for tire pressure monitoring, lost communication. Well, let's face it, it's going on 9 years old. Each tire has a sensor. As they age, the sensor batteries wear out, and you got to spend a fortune replacing them all. Or you can just ignore the stupid system and have a tire pressure gauge in your car, unless you want to spend a lot of money on that stupid stuff. And some people say, but Scotty, you can see which one is broken and replace it. Yeah, well, if one of them's broken, the other 3 are going to break real soon because they all have the same battery system in them. So my advice, when you get a car like this, ignore the tire pressure monitoring system. We'll see what else is in there. It's got one for the electronic power steering, and that says vehicle speed signal. Yeah, well, for some reason it decided it didn't have a vehicle speed signal at one point in time, which we really don't care about. There's only 2 other codes, I think, on it that we even care about. That's the ECM. The engine and ECT, electronic controlled transmission. It's got some codes. Let's see what they are. And they have gone away now. You can see, watch. Because they were for the stupid system for the tire pressure monitoring system. There's a complex interplay between all these stupid little systems, the modules. It would make your head spin. And this is why, just because you got codes, don't think there's anything serious wrong. This didn't have check engine light or anything on. This machine reads anything that possibly goes wrong with a vehicle. And those are more or less meaningless codes anyways. Sure, the stupid tire pressure monitoring system isn't working correctly, but tire pressure gauge will fix that. So, and we'll see what shape it's in by looking at raw data. Black is good, red is bad. All this stuff's pretty normal so far. Now the target air fuel ratio, 0.999. Okay, 1.000 is perfect. So this thing's off 1/1000th. So I guess you can't complain being off 1/1000th when you got 100,000 miles. No codes for emissions. Transmission data is good. It's got the kilometers instead of miles, but that's the mileage. That comes out to a little over 100,000 miles. So nobody cheated on the speedometer. That hasn't been set back. That's the real one. Even shows the injector volume, and that's good. The throttle position system, which is of course all electronic on these. You're driving them basically with your foot on a computer mouse. Variable valve timing, that's all good. And typical misfire count, they're all zeros. It's not misfiring. You can see it's never cut fuel for misfiring either. That's all off. 4 cylinders exactly the same, which is what you want. All of them. The engine speed fluctuation average is 0, meaning they all go exactly the same, which is what you want. Transmission data is all good. It's got electronically controlled 6-speed transmission. I'm sure it shifts good. We'll take it for road test and find out. Well, we'll put it in gear. Now it's got a tiny little backup camera. It works. I mean, I'd want something a little bit fancier than that, but you can see where you're going, and at least it's not like the new Toyota where the screen goes way up here and blocks everything. I like this better. At least it's fit in the car. It doesn't look like an afterthought. This thing is smooth as can be. Yeah, look, it's got 100,000 miles on it. Doesn't shake at all. And being a RAV4, it's high enough in the air, I don't have to worry about this giant bump. Now, I'll show you what I'm talking about. Now you can see it's in 4-wheel drive, okay? And now all the wheels are being driven in the 4-wheel drive mode. You're in mud, stuff like that. That's what you want. You don't want one wheel spinning like mad and the other not moving. That's what it's for. Now we'll see if the system's set up right. We'll go a little faster. Notice it turned itself off automatically. It's set up that way. So if you're stupid, the car's smarter than you and it turns it off. So we'll take it out to the little road here. Monday morning, there shouldn't be too many people here. No, it's clear. Give it some gas and smooth shifting. You barely feel it shift and plenty of acceleration. Sure, it's not a race car, you know, but when you step on the gas, it takes off, and it takes off very smoothly too. It's got plenty enough horsepower in that 2.5-liter engine, and it's also fun to drive. They handle good, and they're nice and up in the air. They're not too high, and they're not too low. She was worried. She was thinking about Subarus a little bit higher, but to me, this thing's plenty high enough. They've gone a long way. Now you can understand why they sell RAV4s more than anything else. The CRVs, they sell a lot of CRVs for Honda, but they sell a lot more RAV4s. So there you have it. Now, the lady who bought this, it took her 1.5 years to find this thing. She was looking for a good price. The new one was out of her price range. And now that we're coming out of the coronavirus stuff, she got this at a good deal. It's great transportation. She won't get stuck, and if it is a lot of snow and mud, you just push that little button into 4-wheel drive. And you notice when we went 25 miles an hour, it turned itself off because you're not supposed to be driving in 4-wheel drive at higher speeds. It's not good for the tires, the transfer case, you wear things off. So pretty much a bulletproof car, even with 100,000 miles and pushing 9 years old. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.